Hey guys, Mr. Wiz here. Welcome back to the channel. So I thought I was done making controls for the plane, but after recording that video, I came up with some more fun ideas of things that we can add to it just to give it a little extra something something. So when I have my plane and it's flying around and everything's great, my prefab that I downloaded here, this plane came with this little smoky trail behind it, which gave me some ideas. It made me think about the planes that people use to basically draw in the sky, skywriting planes, right? And I thought it'd be cool to show you guys how to add a trail to your plane if you wanted to. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you guys how to create trails. It's pretty simple. And then, oh, my plane is crashing. And then, after I show you how to make trails, I'm going to show you a little bit more advanced stuff where you can actually turn it on and off using some scripts that we can create, okay? So I'm going to show you the easy part, and I'm going to show you the harder part. So lots of new things in this video that you can try at home if you want to. So first things first, I don't really need my particle system. I'm thinking about turning it off. Instead of deleting it, I'm just going to deactivate it. So over here on the right-hand side where I've got my little check mark, I'm just going to go ahead and uncheck it. So keep in mind, whenever you have something in your world, if you don't want to use it, but you don't actually want to delete it, you can always deactivate it. Here's the cool thing about that. You can turn things on or off with code. So I could actually program something to turn it back on at certain times, perhaps. Maybe when I'm going a certain speed, I could do all that, right? So I just turned that off so it wouldn't be in the way of the trail that I'm about to make. So for my ship, I'm going to click on the parent object of my ship. I'm going to do a right click on it to create a child. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to effects, because this is just an effect that I haven't taught you guys yet. We have talked about particle system effects. We have not talked about trails. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to create an effect that is a trail. So I'm going to put that on there. I don't need to rename it. It's fine. It should already be centered on my ship, which is pretty good. I could always move it if I need to. But let's just see what it looks like in its default settings. Let's check it out. So that white line you see coming behind me, that is the trail. Now the cool thing about trails is you can get them to stay on the screen for a while, which allows you to create like a path that you can check out. Now this one, I don't see the line behind me. That's because this trail has a really short lifespan. Over here on the right-hand side, where I have my new trail, it says time 5. So my trail only survives for 5 seconds. Let's make that longer. I'm going to do 60 seconds, so a full minute. Let's check it out now. So if I'm flying around and I turn around, I should be able to see the trail that I left behind me. Let's go ahead and turn around. And there's the white line that I made. There's the trail that I created. And that will stay there for 60 seconds before it starts to fade away, because that's the time period I put. Now, right now, it doesn't look super realistic. It looks like just a plain old white line in the sky, almost like tape. So let's edit it a little bit, make it a little bit more realistic. We're not going to do a lot to it. But over here on the right, we've got some different things. Emitting decides whether or not it's actually running right now. The color is the main thing we're going to look at right now. So right now, it's just a bright white. If I'm creating this behind my plane, it's probably not going to be a bright white. It's probably going to be more of an off-white or a grayish white, more like smoke. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to one of those colors. It probably also wouldn't be completely opaque. So that top arrow is what allows us to choose between opaque or transparent. It'll probably be at least a little transparent. So let me take a little bit of the opacity down here with the alpha bar. Then on the right-hand side, just like we did when we did our fire, I'm going to have it fade out completely. So at the very end, I'm going to have it fade out completely, which would make it more like real smoke would, right? I could also darken it maybe, but I think I'll leave the color the same. So I got an off-white at the beginning, a bright white at the end, but it's slightly faded out at the beginning and fully faded out at the end. Let's check it out now. It should look a little bit less like just a hand-drawn white line. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and turn around. And there it is. And yeah, it looks a little bit less cartoony. Oh, I hit the ground and I'm crashing. Ah! Alright. So yeah, it looks less cartoony and it does fade out at the end, which makes it look less like just a big old piece of white tape. And the fun part about having a trail is, as the gamer, it's actually a lot of fun. I can draw things in the sky. I can make shapes. I can do all sorts of cool stuff with here. Here I just made this loop, and now I can fly through the loop that I made. And maybe I want to fly around a mountain, and I can create all sorts of fun things going on here. I really like doing loops. That's probably my favorite part, because I can just like hold down my up or my down arrow and make a full circle, which is kind of cool. I don't know why they're so satisfying, but they are. Now if I fly away and come back, I'll be able to see the big circle. Whoop, I'm about to hit the ground again. There we go. So there's the circle I made earlier. This is fun. I like it. I feel like the trail just makes flying more enjoyable. It kind of gives you a way to play, right? So there's all the stuff I've done so far. All right, so I've got this great trail coming out behind the plane. So that was the simple way. Remember I told you I was going to show you simple, now I was going to get a little bit more complicated. So this is the simple part. Just creating a trail is pretty cool. But what if you want more control over it? Professional skywriters, the people who write messages in the sky using the smoke from their plane, they have the ability to turn the smoke on and off. And that's important if you're writing a message or shapes. You need to be able to decide when does it turn on and when does it turn off. So we're going to go ahead and do that by creating a script. All right, let's go. So in your projects down there in your assets, you should already have a folder for your scripts. We're going to open it up and we're going to create a new script. So I'm going to right click, create C# script, and I'm going to call this script Skywriting. So remember, you want to name it right away. Otherwise, you'll have to change it in the code. So I created I created a script called Skywriting. Here it is, and you can see that they already named it correctly. Make sure your public class name matches the name that you gave it, or it will not work. All right, we're going to go ahead and open it up. So here's how this script is going to work. First off, I need to put it on my trail. So the trail that I made, I'm going to go ahead and select it. Down here at the bottom where it says Add Component, we're going to drag and drop the Skywriting script onto the trail that we made. All right, so there it is down there, and it's going to affect the trail. What we're going to do is we're going to set this up with a button press so it turns the trail on and off, okay? So a couple different ways that we could do that. We could have it turn off the object itself. We could have it turn off the component, or we could have it turn off the emitting part. After testing it on my own game, the emitting actually works best. Here's what happens if we turn on and off the trail renderer. Actually, let's just play it. I'll show you, because I can show you in play mode what happens. If we're flying around and it's drawing my lines and everything's great, if I turn off the trail renderer, or if I turn off the trail object, you guys see that line right there? If I turn it off, the whole thing disappears. You see that? So that doesn't really do what I need it to do. What I actually need is, instead of turning off all the stuff that I've already made, I want it to turn off the emission. So whether it's not, it's making it. Does that make sense? So the trail renderer will still exist. It's just whether or not it's emitting that we're turning on and off. So we're basically going to make a code, let me show you again, that turns this part on and off. So the emission of the trail is what we'd be changing, which I just crashed. But if I hadn't crashed, you should see the dashed lines there. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up this script. It is hard to fly the planes while I'm talking about them. It really is. All right, so here's my basic script right now. Public class is called Skywriting, which matches the name. If it did not match, it would not work, and I would have to change that. I'm going to go ahead and create a variable. So let me give a couple spaces here before the start function to make room for my variable. This one is going to be a private variable, just because of the fact that there's no need to change it, okay? This is a variable that we won't need to change in the Unity software, so there's no reason to make it public. All right, what we're going to put here is what we're changing. So if it was a number, it'd be an integer or a float, like we learned before. So what type of variable is this one? What is the thing that we are changing? We are changing the trail renderer. So we're going to write this as trail renderer. So the private trail renderer, and now I have to name this variable. So it doesn't really matter what I name it because nobody's going to see it but me. So it's really just whatever I feel like is going to be easiest to understand in my code. So I'm just going to call it plain trail. And now I'm going to put the semicolon at the end to end that line. Okay, so I'm creating a variable called plain trail, which allows us to set the trail renderer. All right, so what I want it to do now is I want it to automatically save this variable as the current trail renderer, this one right here. I need to save this trail renderer as the variable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something called getComponent. All right, so how do I use getComponent? In the start, so when the program first starts, I want it to save my variable as getComponent. So my variable's name is plain trail. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the function start. So inside the void start function. I know this might seem a little bit advanced considering we just learned about variables. So if this is too much for you guys, I understand. But I still want to show it to you. So when the program starts, in the void start, it's going to set the plain trail equal to, and then what we're going to put here after plain trail is we want it to save the current component as plain trail. So we're going to put in get component, and hopefully I'm spelling this right. We're going to use these arrow symbols, which we haven't used before. These arrow symbols. And between that, I'm going to put trail renderer. Make sure I spell that right. And then after the arrows, we're going to put an open and close parentheses and a semicolon. So what this line, I know this is a little bit advanced, what this line is basically saying is, when the program starts, at the start of the program, the first thing we want to do is to save my new variable that I made. It's going to be saved as the component trail renderer. This line, this getComponent trail renderer, this only works if the script is on the same object that has that component. So since I put the script on my trail, which has the trail renderer, this will work. If I put my skywriting script on some other part of the plane, it would not work. So it's grabbing the component from this object that's called trail renderer, and it's saving it. It's saving it as my new variable called plain trail. Okay, so that's the first step. What I want to do right now, before I even do anything, I just want to make sure I didn't break it. So I'm going to save, Control S to save. I'm going to go back into my game, and I just want to make sure I don't get any big error messages here. All right, no error messages. We're still good. Okay, so I haven't coded anything yet. All I've done is saved the variable. All right, so now that I have a variable that's going to let me change the trail renderer, I need to go ahead and start making changes to it. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I want this to happen when I press a button. So I need it to be checking it with every update. So inside of here, I'm going to put a logic. So I'm going to use an if. If you haven't learned about logics before, they're basically if-then statements. If a certain thing happens, then do something else, right? So I'm creating an if block. And the way if blocks work is they use parentheses. Inside the parenthesis will be my condition. And then after that, I will have a set of brackets, and this will be the action that takes place if the certain thing is true, right? So what is the condition that I want to turn my trail on or off? It's going to be a button press, or actually in this case, I'm going to use a get key down. So when a certain key is pressed down, this will trigger it. And then I'm going to put another set of parentheses to signify what key. So inside, I'm going to put key code dot space. So basically the space bar, okay? So what I'm saying here is if the key, that is the space bar, is pressed down, it's going to trigger whatever action I put in here. I want to clarify something that's kind of interesting here. I didn't have to use key down for this. I could have done get button down. And button down and key down are similar but different. Key down means I can use any key on my keyboard. Button down means I have to use one of the pre-assigned buttons that is in the input settings. Remember the input settings we looked at before with horizontal and vertical? There were also buttons on there. There's fire button. There's one button called fire 1. There's another button called fire 2. There's a button called jump. So these are kind of pre-designed buttons that you would use on a controller if you were playing with a video game controller, right? You'd have a jump button, you'd have a fire button. So if I used get button down, I would be limited to the pre-made buttons that are in the input section. But if I use get key down, I can use any key on my keyboard. That's the difference between them. All right, so when the button is pressed down, what do I want to happen? Well, I want my trail to basically turn on and off. So here's what I'm going to do. I named my trail with the variable plain trail. So I'm going to put plain trail, and I have to make sure I spell it the same way I did before, equals, actually, I missed a step. I have to put something after it. Plain trail dot, all right, so I'm going to put emitting, because the thing I'm turning on and off is this thing right here that says emitting. So I have to spell it the same way I have it written here. If I want to turn the whole thing on or off, which we already saw was not the right way to do it, but if I wanted to do that, instead of putting emitting, I'd put enabled. Okay? So if I wanted to turn the whole component on and off, I would use enabled, but I don't want to do that. I only want to turn off the one piece of it. So I want to turn off the emitting piece. Make sure I spelled that right. emitting. All right, so my plain trail dot emitting equals, now here's where things get interesting. I could type in here true or false, but if I do that, all that does is check it on or off. What I really want for this part of my code is for it to switch. So if it is on, it's going to turn off, and if it is off, it's going to turn on. So to do that, to have it switch back and forth, I use the exclamation point, and then I just retype what I just wrote. So plain trail dot emitting. And basically what that says is that it's going to set the emission setting to the opposite of what it currently is. So if it is on, it's going to turn it off. If it is off, it's going to turn it on. Let me not forget my semicolon at the end here. All right, I have a lot of code I just wrote, and there's a very good chance I may have made some mistakes. So let's go ahead and test this. Control S, and let's go to the program and cross our fingers. Oh, I got an error message. Get key down does not exist in current context. Did I spell something wrong? I may have spelled something wrong. Get key down, keycode dot space. Is space supposed to be lowercase? Control S. Let's try this again. Nope. Okay, I know what I did wrong. I forgot to put input. I told you this was complicated and I was going to make a mistake. It's if input dot get key down. I'm pretty sure this will work now. Let me save it. Control S. Let's try this again. All right, my error message went away. Let's try it. So if I play, so right now it's on. If I press my space bar, does it stop? It does. If I press my space bar again, it turns on. So it is turning on and off just the way I want it to. And now I can fly around, and I can see that little dashed circle I just made. Should be right over there. There it is. It works. So now I can design and have fun drawing things in the sky, right? All I have to do is press the button once to turn it on or off. Now, right now, my code starts with it on. If I wanted to start it with it off, I could absolutely do that just by switching it off. And now it will start off, and if I press the button, it will turn on. So pressing it once turns it on, and then it's off again, on and off again, on and off again. This is wonderful. So, variations. If you wanted to put some variations in this code, you could absolutely do so. What if, instead of having it turn on and off, you actually wanted it to only play when you are holding the button. So what I could do is I could have if get key down, instead of putting this whole thing in there, I could put true. So if the button's down, then the emission is true, and then I could copy this and make it so when the key comes back up, it becomes false. So now I have to hold the button down to make it work. Control S to save. Let's test it out. So right now it's off. If I press the button, it only does a quick burst. If I hold the button, it works, and then when I let go, it stops. So now I have to hold the button down instead of pressing the button once. So it's just a little variation in the way that it plays. So pretty cool. Other things I could do. What if I don't want to use the space bar? What if I want to do something else? What if I want to change that? So what I can do is I can make that button a variable and allow you to change what it is. So let's do that just as a fun little thing here. So up here where my variables were at, where I made my plane trail, we're going to set this one to public. That way we can change it from Unity. And this will be a key code, which is what space is, a type of key code, right? So we're creating a variable that is a key code, and we're going to name it, I'm going to call it button press. Lowercase for button, capital for press, no space. Put my semicolon at the end. Don't forget your semicolons, they're important. All right. So I'm creating a variable called button press, and I'm going to replace key code space, that whole line, key code dot space. I'm replacing that with button press, and I'm going to do that on both of these since I have it happening twice. Now you don't have to do this. I'm just showing you, right? Control S. Okay, so now I should be able to change the spacebar button to any button on my keyboard. So let's go back to Unity. And if I scroll down to where my script is, there's my new variable, button press, and it currently says none. So if I click on that, I have now a huge list that I can grab from that pretty much covers every button you could think of. Even some weird symbols. There's all my letters of the alphabet. So maybe I want the trail button to happen when I press the T on my keyboard. Let's try it. So I do have still set up to only press and hold, right? So if I press and hold the T on my keyboard, it now creates a trail. Kind of cool, right? Some fun stuff there. So yeah, like I said, there's variations you could do with this. You could also, as I mentioned before, instead of doing get key down, you could do with the buttons instead, using some of the buttons pre-mades, which are in the input manager. You have fire 1, fire 2, fire 3, jump, and if you open them up, you'll see what they are. So if you wanted to still use spacebar, but you wanted to use the official controls, you would do on button down jump, and that would allow you to use the same spacebar button, but you'd be using the official controls. So essentially, if you were to make this game and then convert it into something for PlayStation or Xbox, something like that, you'd be using whatever their jump button is, right? So that's the benefit of using those. But since I'm just making this for PC, key down, it works absolutely fine, and I can use whatever button I want to, which is really a lot of fun choosing my buttons. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you guys in this, was just how to make a trail and then how to code the trail to work when you want it to. So if you did follow this video, I would encourage you to have some fun drawing in your world. You could always set the time longer too. I only put 1 minute here. Maybe you want it to last 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right? I could do 600 instead of 60 if I wanted it to last 10 minutes. And that would really give me time to create some real fun stuff in the sky. I could try writing my name or drawing a picture or something if I wanted to, right? It'd be challenging, but some of you are probably up for that challenge. All right, so I hope you learned something new in this video. If you did, please click the like button. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe, and then I'll catch you guys next time. Have a great rest of your day.